Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Make Our World Your Runway. This is the show that's not only about pageantry, but about modeling, fashion, entertainment, and even the business industry. Before I introduce my wonderful and fabulous guest for this week, I'd like to tell you about a few reminders that we have, and always to subscribe to the Global Trade Chamber YouTube channel so you can see and view Make Our World Your Runway and the GTC success stories. The 100 Successful Women in Business book is available at Amazon and Target. I highly recommend picking up a copy and read the many accomplishments of these amazing, successful women. It's available every Monday, the Global Trade Chamber magazine, and you'll also see some fabulous stories on some of these amazing women. And registrations are now open for the next round of awards for the 100 Successful Women in Business, which is going to be held in London, England. Okay, this August 24th through the 28th. Okay, one event you do not want to miss. If you know a successful woman, or yourself, if you feel you have amazing accomplishments, do not hesitate to nominate yourself or someone that you know that fits this criteria. And we have a couple of more days for nominations. Okay, it's going to be ending on April 30th. So please take this time and the advantage to nominate someone. So thank you so much. And we hope to see you in London, England, August 24th through the 28th. It's one show, like I said, you do not want to miss. And now for my guest this week. She is absolutely amazing. She's a professional speaker. She's an author and a consultant. She's also the international director for Portada, Florida magazine. It's a bilingual and Spanish digital outlet geared to the Hispanic communities of South Florida. And since relocating to South Florida from Venezuela, she has stood out as such a community leader who champions for women's issues. And just listening to a few of these awards that she's received. In 2012, she got the award of Hispanic Woman of Distinction. In 2013, she was a Spira Broward Award. And also in 2013, America's Community Center honoree. And in 2014, from the Miramar Pembroke Pines Chamber of Commerce, she received the Pinnacle Award. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please help me welcome to Make Our World Your Runway, Miss Yvonne Salas. Welcome, Yvonne.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you so much for the invitation. A pleasure being with you on your show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. And, I do want to tell our listeners that, when I first came to South Florida and I was meeting people, and I had the distinct pleasure of meeting you along with Alan Terrell, how you both encouraged me to start Miss Latina International. And I always felt that besides Al, you were also one of the founders of my organization, which has now grown into Miss International World. So from my heart to yours, I really want to thank you for taking that time out to encourage me and really building on the Hispanic community. It's always meant a lot.
Thank you so much. I do recall when we first met, and I'm so happy to have seen all your successes and how your organization has grown during these years. You deserve every bit of success because you're such a hardworking woman. You're very inspiring, as a matter of fact.
Well, you know what? I get that from a lot of people in the community, and you were one person that really did inspire me. And, you were always there for me and always offered advice and always covered a lot of my events with Portada magazine. And you and I also worked on some major fashion shows together, which was absolutely great. And I'm also looking up to the event that's coming up next week, Art for All, which is going to be, I believe, at the it was the Old Bonaventure Mall or the Old Western Mall?
Old Wellington Mall, at the Old Wellington Mall. Yes, it's going to be an event in Wellington. I'm also looking forward to it. It's a great new feature that Portada has been involved with, which is the art world. And we are supporting local artists, some internationally renowned ones of Hispanic origin, and other local ones that haven't been discovered yet, but we are supporting their work. And this is an event that is meant just to do that.
Well, that's great. And that's another way of getting the word out to the Hispanic community and letting people know what's going on. And of course, we're going to have our beauty queens there. I understand Tenchi said there's going to be a lot of VIPs. So we're looking forward to it. And it's a beautiful place. So it is a major event. And we're going to tell all our viewers and listeners to, if they want to attend, to definitely sign up. Space is limited. But another show they do not want to miss.
Exactly. Thank you always for supporting these activities also.
Oh, absolutely. And I was going to mention it, but I want to make sure that I pronounce it right. You also have a company that works towards etiquette and manners. How do you pronounce the correct name of your company?
Okay, it's called Etiquette, which is the Spanish version of Etiquette Excellence. And it is a project that's really close to my heart. It's a project that Tenchi and I started way back in Venezuela. And it grew out of our star publication in Venezuela, which was Etiqueta magazine, which was a social magazine that covered all aspects of the affluent society and of the arts. And we used to get a lot of requests for information on how to set up events, how to set up beautiful tables, about tea etiquette. And so, since we were getting asked all these questions, we thought it was really the time to set up a working relationship with our clients, providing instruction and consulting in all areas of etiquette. And that's how Etiquette Excellence came up.
And you know, that's a great it's a great organization, because I'll be honest with you. So many people, when they sit down to a table, especially if you're on a major cruise ship and you're sitting like at the captain's dinner,
Exactly.
you ever watch people with silverware? They don't watch,
yes.
which fork to use, which knife to use. And you know what? I often said to myself, maybe I'll take this class, because, there's always something new that you could learn.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's one of the attributes. And I always advise also your contestants
Yes.
and any professional. If you want to have success in life, you need to polish all areas of your person. So, social skills and all, not because we say it, but even studies from places like Harvard indicate that 85% of our success depends on our social skills, because we are interrelating with people all the time. We don't live in a cave, and no matter how good we can be at our particular profession and area of expertise, we do have to get along with others. And that's where etiquette and social skills come in. Most events, and you know it so well, take place around a table.
Yes.
We have, the business breakfast, the networking events, the galas, like you said, in a cruise, sitting at the captain's table. How do we handle ourselves? And knowing how to act in all terms of etiquette gives us confidence so that we can take care of business without being worried about, like you mentioned, what fork to use.
Right.
Or how to introduce ourselves, or do I shake hands? Do I sit down? Do I stand up? I mean, there is so much that influences how people perceive us. And that's where Etiquette Excellence comes in. And also, one thing, Angela, that we have to be aware that it's never either too early to start learning or
Yes.
too late. So, we have courses for all ages, beginning with children as early as 4 or 5 years old, which is what we call our Little Prince and Little Princess programs, to the Art of Succeeding, which is for professionals, because people become aware that you need help in these areas. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. On the contrary, I really respect when I have doctors, lawyers that reach out to us because they can be very successful in their, like I said, profession or area of expertise, but they understand that they need to polish their manners in other areas.
Exactly. And this is a great and interesting conversation because it's something my husband and I talk about all the time. And you know, when he was working for MCI in New York City, he had a boss that always said to him, image, image, image. And I always remembered that. And I didn't quite understand what he was talking about. But it was like when you went in to see a client, if you were dressed proper and you knew how to speak and you, like you said, you had the right etiquette, you'd be surprised how you could keep those customers forever. And just the way my husband would look, he made a lot of sales because of that. And because also because he could speak another language as well. You know, when he was in the service and he was stationed in Belgium and he went over to Paris, he learned the French language. That's why they gave him all the French accounts. So it was his mannerism, and they love that. And especially with the world that we live in today, that you see so many different things. You're right. If you have the proper etiquette and you know how to speak and you know how to conduct yourself, you could walk in a room and just attract people without saying anything. So
Exactly.
it's very important. And I've always noticed that about you. And I said that to one of my girls. I said, watch Yvonne when she comes into a room. She flows. She knows how to talk to people. She knows how to approach people. Even when you take pictures, you know how to stand. You know how to present yourself. And you just taught me something. I mean, I know this, but it is very important that if you don't have the right etiquette in business, you could be the most smartest person in the world, but if you don't know how to present yourself, you're not going to go anywhere.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And all those aspects that you just mentioned, which we discuss when we have, especially for the adults, to understand the importance of a first impression. Oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness. It's something that you cannot erase if you give the wrong first impression. Learning about dress codes, how to dress for different events, that is so basic. And yet we forget because we live in a culture that is very relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you mentioned Europe and that your husband travel. Of course, all of us that have been abroad understand that in other countries you could not even think of going out, to even to the supermarket in your pajama pants. Here, here you see people that do it all the time. And it's not a matter of economics. It's not a matter of how successful you are in your business because people could have a lot of money and yet be very weak in all that has to do with presenting themselves and first impressions and dressing appropriately. But the wonderful thing, Angela, that I love about my profession, and which is why at this stage of the game I continue doing it, is because the pleasure that I get from seeing that people can learn, that
Yes.
you can, self improvement has to be at the top of your list. And because we can learn, it doesn't matter how old you are or how long you have been doing something the same way. If it hasn't been profitable for you in terms of your relationships or your business, you can always change. You can always learn to do it better. You can always understand the reason why these rules. I mean, I talk about, King Louis the 14th, and
Yeah.
of course, the rules are not the same, but the concept is respect, kindness, consideration for others. Those are the basis of good manners. Those are the basis of etiquette. And that's why we have to insist in continuing for people to learn them, because we cannot have a civil society if people are not aware of how important being kind and respectful is.
Exactly. And you brought up another good point. going to the supermarket. A lot of times my mother will say to me, "You're only going across the street." I said, "I don't care. Even if I don't have a full face of makeup on, I got that lipstick on, or I throw a little bit of eyelashes on, something, because that's the way I am." I've walked into a supermarket, and this is funny. I'll have people coming up to me, and I'm saying, "But I don't even have my full face on today." But I get it's my mannerism, and just the fact that they see that I look a little bit different. Okay, and you're right about Europe. When you go to Europe, oh my God, you definitely have to be dressed. I mean, you talk about in the afternoons. See, their big meal is in the afternoon, and in Europe, their dinner is either later on or they eat very lightly. You got to see the way they're dressed sitting outside at those cafes. It's like they were going to a gala. It's unbelievable. And a few weeks ago, when I was in the hospital, I really wasn't feeling good, and I didn't put any makeup on. I just about combed my hair. When the surgeon came in, I was apologizing to him. I said, "Excuse me," I said, "I never look this way." And I took my phone out and showed him a picture. I said, "This is what I normally look like." And he said, "You know what?" He said, "I respect that." He said, "But you look spectacular anyway." He said, "You got to see what I've been seeing all morning." I said, "Oh, I understand that." I said, "But that's not me." And then yesterday when I went into his office, he said, "You know, you look a little taller." I said, "Well, now you're seeing me dressed up and not lying down on a pillow."
Exactly.
And what was funny about that is you would think that a doctor or surgeon, somebody who's very busy, wouldn't notice these things, but he did. And he appreciated the fact that I told him that I was a little embarrassed that I didn't normally look the way I did. And now we have such a great rapport. So you're right about that. If you know what you're doing and you have all the proper tools, you could command the respect of so many people.
You're so right. And everyone notices. It's a fallacy, Angela, to think people don't notice, people don't care. Oh, everyone notices. From, even when you go to a job interview, and this is something that we advise our clients, just the simple fact of getting into the elevator and saying good morning, good afternoon, whatever. You never know who's going to be there. Maybe in the elevator riding with you is the HR manager that's going to interview you 10 minutes later.
Good point.
And, you just never know. And people do notice, and it does make a difference. And even talking about getting hired, well, the HR managers, I read a study the other time where they said that one of the top reasons why people don't get hired is because they are rude. And rudeness manifests in many ways, starting with not being punctual. If you have a 10 o'clock interview and you show up at 10:15, what do you think that manager is going to think? He's going to come late for work every day. If the interview is not important enough to be there on time, imagine on a daily basis. So, etiquette shows up in many, many aspects of your life. People are not aware that it covers so much. It's much more than just which fork to use, which of course is very important and is one aspect, because that is table manners or table etiquette. But it covers all aspects of your life. So
it does.
We have to be aware of it.
Exactly. In fact, one time, it said to me, "Oh my God, Angela, you're sitting on the beach in a pair of shorts and have makeup on." I said, "So?" I said, "What's wrong with that?" But that's the way I am. Okay. I was brought up that way. And then I grew up in the Northeast, where, of course, New York City. All right. And back in the day, I don't know about now, but New York City back in the day, in the 90s and the early 2000s. Oh my God. You like we said, you couldn't walk in a grocery store if you weren't dressed. If you walked in there with a pair of shorts and flip-flops, a lot of times they'd tell you walk out. Because that's just the way the city was. Okay. And me coming out of the entertainment and the cosmetic industry. And it's a funny thing, because I was just talking about that the other day. When I first went into the cosmetic industry, you really had to be trained. you could not go on the floor unless you went to school. I mean, the big organizations would send you to school, and that would be like 6 to 8 weeks, and then you'd have to take a test. Today, I'm noticing they just put anybody on the floor. So I'm saying if they put anybody on the floor and doesn't have a knowledge of what they're doing, no wonder why people aren't coming out and looking the way they're supposed to, and the whole package isn't there. So training is very important, and that's something, and I'm so glad that you have an organization like that, and I think I'm going to start sending some of my girls there. And I would even love
to have them. I would love to have them. It's a pleasure. In Venezuela, we did also a lot of training and throughout the years because, you know, we had the experience of a young lady that won a beauty pageant. And, you know, the first thing they do the following morning is bring them breakfast.
Right.
And the first really public event after the win, after having walked the runway with the crown, the first thing they do the following morning is have a press breakfast so that the press in general starts talking to them. And it was a very awkward moment for some young ladies because precisely they didn't know how to go about enjoying that breakfast, you know, from how to, you know, stir your coffee with the sugar. If you're clinking the cup, you know, that's rude. So, I mean, it's little things that they have to learn, and it's all right. Once again, I repeat, you know, maybe you come from a background, you talk about the fact that you grew up in an ambiance that was conducive to you being well dressed and made up and all that. But not everyone has that privilege that you and I have had. And but they can learn. And the earlier they learn it, the more advantage and more success they are capable of having. So, you know,
very, very true.
In
fact, when you talk about Venezuela, look at how many times the girls from Venezuela have won Miss Universe. Exactly. And why? Because they are so polished. When they come onto the stage, it's their hair, their makeup, their gowns, their nails. And when they get up to speak, just the way they walk, they are so polished. And you know, when you see something like that, from the time they actually win, okay, the country title, they are groomed. Okay?
Groomed. That's the correct word. They are groomed. You are so right.
Yeah. I mean, even their teeth. If they have a little crack in the teeth, they're sending them to the dentist. I mean, they get their teeth whitened. But when they're on stage and they're in front of the camera, look at the difference. They just stand out. And you hear people say, well, they're very plastic. No, they're not plastic. You can be groomed, but still be a human being and not something that's, okay, cosmetically made up. You can still have your wits about you.
Right, because, and that's what we have to understand, that us as individuals, even if you're not, you know, in the beauty industry or in the pageant industry, you can be polished. You can be a polished human being. And that shows up wherever you walk in. And it's like you mentioned, you could tell there's something different about this person. What it is. She's been groomed. He's been groomed because, you know, we're talking about ladies, but men need polishing too. Because a gentleman, you know, when you have a reference, even this morning I was discussing because, you know, Prince William and Kate are celebrating their 11th wedding anniversary.
Right.
And so people are discussing, you know, how polished they are. Because they have been groomed.
Yes.
Why does the Duchess Kate show up looking so fabulous? Why does she make such great impression? Someone can have a natural grace, of course. Some people are born with those traits, but definitely she has been groomed to be the future queen.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be just because you're going to be the queen.
Right.
That can be because I'm going to be a good example as a mother, as a grandmother, as a professional, no matter where I am, whether I'm in a makeup counter, in, you know, in a store, or I am a surgeon, no matter where I am interacting with public, I can be polished, I can be groomed, I can stand out. And
Exactly.
that can all be accomplished by getting the right training.
Exactly. By getting, and you know what? Something that you're saying, a lot of companies, some of the major corporations, they hire companies like yours because, you know, they want their top CEOs and their top people to be polished when they're going out. And you know, the same thing even applies when you talk to someone on the phone. You can almost tell if that person is very polished just by the way they speak. Okay.
Exactly.
And you're right about that. There's so many people out there that are rude, and there's no reason for it. You know,
not at all. Not
I mean,
at all. There's no excuse for it.
Exactly. We're all human beings. We all get mad at the time. I'm one of these people that could yell on the top of my lungs. But if I'm on the call with someone, even if I don't like what they're saying, I'll turn around and say, you know what? I disagree. But let's kick this around. Let's see if we can find a solution to this.
Exactly.
But if I come off screaming and yelling, where's that going to get me? It's not going to get me anywhere. Okay.
No.
So,
you know, like that famous phrase, if you can choose to be anything, choose to be kind and polite. You can always choose that. You can always choose that. It's like you say, we all have bad days. We all have to deal with rude people. But again, we can choose how we react. So, you know, definitely it's something that we can control, and we can learn to have assertive communication. It doesn't mean, you know, and this is important to point out. Some people associate kindness and politeness with being a doormat. Has nothing to do with it. You can have assertive communication, you can get your point across, but there is no need to curse, there is no need to yell, there is no need to use any type of, you know, degrading comments, which people are so ready to use. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. But, you know, I have faith that every day people can learn to be better human beings and be kinder and be more considerate. And that's all that we try to do in Etiquette Excellence. You know, we do it. We do in-house or in-company training. And what you were mentioning, it doesn't matter where. We need to have, you know, customer service starts with good etiquette, with politeness, with courtesy. And, you know, so it's like you say, many corporations and many private, we've been doing a lot of training in the health profession because, you know, it's like you mentioned, when you're not feeling well, you're very sensitive. So people that work with patients have to be aware that it's particularly important that they are kind and respectful, because you're meeting people at their worst moments, you know, people that are in pain or people that are suffering some kind of loss.
Exactly.
And you have to be particularly considerate in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. And we're definitely going to have to get you on the pageant cruise this year. I think it would be great. We always have some times with the ladies where you can speak with them. It's October the 15th through the 17th. We'll get you out a special invitation. We've got Tito Puente Jr. coming back to perform. So I think, so I think it would be great. We'd love to have you as a judge as well, because I think you'd make a fabulous judge, especially with everything that we just spoke about. So I will make sure that I start getting that information out to you. But remember those dates, October, and I will text it to you, October 15th through the 17th. Bahama Paradise Cruise Line now just joined with Margaritaville they're calling it Margaritaville at Sea, which is owned by Jimmy Buffett.
Oh, how wonderful.
So there's going to be a lot more, okay, to the cruise. But I think you'd be an excellent judge, and I think it would be great for you to give a little seminar and speak to the ladies on this, because that is a very important aspect.
Would love to. So thank you for thinking of me. And we've collaborated in so many things throughout the year. Let's add this one to that list.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was just reading, you were also vice president of Mujeres Latinas. And
yes, I was.
Another great organization, which I went to some of their events. And I think that's how you and I met, when you were the vice president?
It's very, most probably because we were very active. We continue to be very active in the community. And right now, since you mentioned that organization, let me plug in an organization that I'm very involved in with right now, which, as a matter of fact, the event on Saturday, the 7th, that we were talking about, the Art for All,
Right.
it's to benefit Forza Stefano Charitable Foundation. I'm not sure if you know it, but it's an organization, it's a local charity that was founded almost 6 years ago to support teens with cancer and their families. Because it's a segment of the population that we had personal experience with, and understand that there's a lot of organizations helping children.
Yes.
And women, for instance, with the breast cancer and all that. But teens, it's such a difficult time in their lives being healthy. Those
Yes.
teenage years with so many things going on. And if on top of that you add the stress of having an illness, which is life-threatening, such as
Yes.
cancer, and it's very difficult for them. Even in the hospitals, they have a lot of things, like games for the little kids.
Yes.
But teenagers don't want to be playing games with
That's
with a
right.
clown. They want their video games and they want other things. And so that's what our organization does. We work very closely with 𝐩𝐻𝐿 Children's Hospital, but
Yeah.
also we've been helping teens in other countries, particularly in Venezuela, where they're having such a difficult time getting treatment because everything is lacking and everything is so expensive. So we support, that they get their treatment, the chemo, and well, here, just a couple of weeks ago, in Weston, there is a teenager suffering from cancer, and we did a room makeover for him. He was just coming back to his house after a couple of months hospitalized. So to welcome him and make him feel better, Forza Stefano did a room makeover for him. And so those are the ways that this organization, it's all volunteers. It's a charity in Pembroke Pines, but serves all of South Florida. And so I'm very involved with that. And the event, the gallery, the Art for All is going to benefit them. So out of the sales from the artists, a large portion is going to Forza Stefano Charitable Foundation. So, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about them.
Yes.
And Angela, let's help them out because they do a wonderful job.
Yeah, let's definitely do something. We could definitely have Miss Portada be a spokesmodel for them, because she was a spokesmodel for a former cancer organization called Look Life Locate, which there was a woman who started that, and she got information out to teenagers and women of all ages on the warning signs of breast cancer. Yeah, it was called Learn, Look, Locate. Great organization. And Carrie was definitely a spokesmodel for them. So we could definitely have her do that. Maybe we could do some sort of a fashion show. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about that charity. But you're right about that. There are so many young children. And we've done 𝐻𝐻𝐿's Children's Hospital, something I'd like to do again. We had the girls go there and they put the crowns on some of the little girls. It was a great opportunity. So that is, and I'll tell you, when it comes to children and animals, I have a very soft spot, because I always say, no matter what goes on in the world, children and animals should not have to suffer, and especially children. I mean, when I see those pictures coming out of Ukraine and I see these poor children, it breaks my heart. This is an unnecessary war. And, maybe adults can adapt, but little children, they don't adapt sometimes. And it's very hard for them to understand what is going on. And especially when a child has an illness like cancer, and that's a life-threatening. And I just hope that in the future, with all the technology that we have with medical today, that they can find a cure for cancer. They find a cure for so many other things. This is something that needs to have a cure, because even an adult, no one should have to suffer from this and have to go to bed at night knowing, am I going to wake up tomorrow, or am I still going to have my 2 feet on the ground?
Exactly. And, you know, illness of children, but teens in particular, it affects the entire family.
Yes.
It's, you know, it's something that radiates, you know, all the worrying, and it affects the parents' finances. Many parents have to decide which of the two stops work in order to be able to take the children to the hospital or to stay with them in the hospital. So it places a terrible financial burden on entire families. And that's why we added for the organization that we support the families, because, you know, even paying, you know, utilities is something that we have done for families, because they simply can't afford it, because they're taking care of the child and they can't work. You know, this is a full-time job, taking care of an ill child. So
it is. And you know, even with the Family Leave Act, they can only be out so many weeks.
X amount of time, exactly.
Right. And thank God that many years ago, that was something that Congress did right, was to pass that bill, the Family Leave Act, because that is so needed, especially in a time like this. And like you say, if they can't work, it's not only utilities, but it's buying food, it's paying rent or a mortgage, just everyday living.
Everyday living becomes very complicated financially and emotionally. You know, you're not ready to need to worry about your finances when you're emotionally so engaged in trying to save the life of your child. So, you know.
Right. And I get up every day and I say, if I got my 2 feet on the ground and I'm healthy, that's all that matters. I can do everything else. But as long as I'm still got those 2 feet, that to me, I'm wealthy at that point.
Exactly. Well, we discuss, you know, gratitude in our etiquette courses, because especially young people, they have to develop an attitude of gratitude, because, you know, if you think, you mentioned the war in Ukraine, you know, people from one day to the next, their entire lives destroy. And so we have to be very grateful on a daily basis. We really do.
Yeah. I mean, look at when we had the lockdown with COVID here, how many people lost their lives, okay, to a virus that we have better knowledge of it now. Okay. But we really had no knowledge back then. I mean, when you're talking in this country and even around the world, just in this country alone, we had over 800,000 people that died from this virus. It's in the millions around the world. And it affected a lot of lives. Okay.
And all of us, because I don't think there is one person that doesn't have the experience of having lost either a relative or a friend or an acquaintance to COVID. Everybody has had that experience. I don't think anybody has been, you know, avoided that, because everyone has had that experience.
I know. It's terrible. And when my cousin got it, and we grew up, we're more like sisters. We grew up as kids together. And it was 2 years ago on Easter Sunday. And I had done a FaceTime with her. And I was not prepared for what I was hearing and what I was seeing.
Oh my God.
And that's when, believe it or not, I don't say this to too many people, but I really turned my life around at that point. And I became more of a humanitarian than I ever was. And I have a saying, that's what got me back into the fight, to go out there and try to help people. And as I just said, be more of a humanitarian, because thank God she survived. But it really hit me. And my husband said to me, now you understand what I've been trying to tell you. It's close to home. He said, and when it gets close to home and it hits you that way, you're going to have a totally different outlook on life than what you had before. And he was so right. And that's why I enjoyed our conversation today, because everything that you've said, you know what? I get busy sometimes in my daily life. And I think this happens to a lot of people, that we forget about all the good things and the kindness and, like you say, the proper etiquette towards another person. So this was a fabulous conversation. And I have to tell you, Yvonne, I learned a lot from things that you said today. You know, there's an old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I totally agree. We can learn. If we're alive, if we're breathing, we have the capacity to learn and to
Yes.
improve. And that has to be our goal in life, and to share our knowledge, which is something you do, is something I do. And I think, if we have been blessed with so many talents, we have to share them. It's not to be kept to ourselves, but to spread the word.
Exactly. And you have so many talents, and I'm so glad that you've won all these awards, and that you've been head of so many wonderful organizations, and you've done a lot for the Hispanic community, but you've done a lot for all our communities. So I applaud you for that. I know that COVID kind of slowed us down for a couple of years, but I'm glad to see that you and 𝐭𝐻𝐻 are back, and we're back working together. And are there any last words that you want to tell our viewers? Anything you want to tell them, and what your plans are for the future?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for this invitation and the opportunity to reach your viewers. But I want to make sure that everyone that has listened to us today understands that they can improve themselves,
Yes.
and they can improve their quality of life. And if you improve yourself, you improve your families, and as a consequence, you improve your communities. So step out of your comfort zone, ask for help, and support local organizations and charities, because we came to this world to be better and to help others. So thank you so much. They can find us at Etiquette Excellence or Portada, Florida. We're in all social media. And if anybody needs to contact us, please feel free to do so.
Absolutely. And you've got to call Al or Maria, because, this year, 100 Successful Women in Business is going to London. And
no,
yeah, August
I'm
20.
going to miss the dates because we're going to London in June.
Oh, gosh. But anyway, you definitely have to get involved with 100 Successful Women in Business, whether it's in London or whether it's here. They would love to have you involved in some sort of capacity.
Thank you. Thank you. I love to reconnect with them, dear friends and admirable people also that are always out there helping the community.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Yvonne, for being our guest. And anytime you want to come back to Make Our World Your Runway, you just let me know, and you can always come. You have an open invitation to come back as our guest.
Thank you so much. Just remind everyone to attend at the old Wellington Mall. It's Saturday, May 7th. It's a beautiful afternoon for the entire family, noon to 6 p.m. And there's going to be art, there's going to be VIPs, there's going to be community leaders, and it's just a fun afternoon supporting local charities.
Yep, and we will be there. Thank you so much, and we will see you next Saturday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another fabulous guest, Yvonne Salas from Portada Magazine. And as always, each week we have a guest that always has an amazing story. So we want to thank you once again and welcome you back to 100 Successful Women in Business. And we will see you next week when we have a very surprise guest. Thank you so much.